I'm going to take the Bob Ross approach today since it's been a while, and I've got a lot of new data to show you guys and a lot of new things to run through. So I thought it would be fun to show you a little bit of behind the scenes in my favorite software, ArcMap, how we can utilize data and analyze data to find out and extract information from this big data set that we're going to have, that we have now, and make it work for us. So bear with me. It's going to be a long video, so you might want to get your snacks and stuff. And if you enjoy maps, just get ready because it's going to be fun. And hopefully I share some things that you might not be familiar with or didn't know you could do. And if you have anything to contribute, please do comment. Let me know if there's tools that I'm not using or that I could be using. So I'm always excited to learn more and hear your opinions. So here we go. If you'll see, we've got a blank canvas here, kind of, just a background map of the United States to start with, just a nice base map. And I'm going to add the same layer that is on the website to the map here. So we've got all of the sightings now, right? And we're going to go ahead and make it look nice because as a GIS guy, I just can't ignore symbology. It's just a pet peeve of mine not to have a good looking map. So at this extent, there is going to be a ton of overlap on the symbols. So we might zoom into an area just to get an idea of what it looks like at a workable extent, because generally you're not going to be working at the United States country level all the time. But this is all of the sightings that as you can see, we've got a lot. I was able to take a CSV or create a CSV from Manjani's website. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong. He did a lot of work through 2016 and then tapered off. So I converted his data into a CSV and massaged it a bit to work with ArcMap and be a little more organized here. So you can see the table that I've got it organized into with the URL for every sighting. So we'll go through that too later. But the first thing is to let's find some hotspots. That's what I think would be fun to do today with a new data set. So, and I'm not going to go through a traditional hotspot analysis. I'm going to go through a simple hotspot by counting the number of sightings within a 3-mile buffer of the areas that coalesce. So you'll, as I work through it, you'll see what I'm getting at. So we're going to start with that. So here we've got the layer added. I'm going to go to my toolbox here, pin that open because we're going to be going back and forth into it a lot. And we're going to start with the buffer tool. So we're going to find the input features that we want to buffer are the Bigfoot sightings. Where do we want to save it? Let's go ahead and make a new folder and we'll call it Hotspot Buffer. And we're going to call this Bigfoot sightings Hotspot Buffer. And let's start with a 3-mile buffer. Okay. We're going to tell it we want to buffer for 3 miles. And we want to do the full side. We're not going to choose any field. We shouldn't have to. 3 miles there. I don't know why it selected field. I must have clicked it by accident. Method planar dissolve type. This is going to be fun. We want to dissolve all the boundaries we've got, right? Instead of having individual buffers for every point, we want them to be like a dissolve buffer so it kind of coalesces. We're going to let that run. And the cool thing with ArcMap is the geoprocessing runs in the background. So we can go follow our results. So that's running now. And we can not going to look very... There we go. There's our 3-mile buffer. So from a far extent, you can't really see it, but you can start to see where they coalesce, right? So now this is going to become one feature. We're going to explode this so that all these little features here, every little circle or where they coalesce, will become their own row in that attribute table. So let me zoom in on an area that's a bit more populated here so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So this, like here, this guy, this area is now going to be one row. So what we're going to wind up doing is counting all of the sightings that are in this coalesced area so we can kind of get an idea of a hotspot of all the points that are within 3 miles of each other and how dense they are within those 3 mile. It's not really a 3-mile buffer per se, but it's an occurrence that happens within a 3-mile radius of another sighting. And as they stack on each other, you get a shape that kind of looks like this. So we're going to go back into the toolbox. Actually, I think it's in editor. Forgive me, ArcMap has tools everywhere. So if I'm missing where it is or it takes me a second, you're just going to have to be patient. I apologize for that, but it's just a matter of remembering where they are. So we're going to go ahead and choose this layer. Okay. Spatial reference. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Let's see. Now we're going to go to more editing tools. I think the advanced editing toolbar is what we want, and that should be open somewhere. I don't see it, so let's go ahead and turn it off and turn it back on. Oh, it's up here. Okay, cool. And explode. We're going to explode these guys. Somehow, somewhere, we're going to find the explode button. Okay, so first thing we have to do to explode is hit the select. We're going to select all the features in this layer. Now it should, there we go. It's doing the selecting. And on the advanced toolbar that we turned on up here, we're going to go find the explode tool. There it is, explode multi-part feature. So where you see one row now, there, every feature, each of these little buffers will be considered a feature, and they're all where this will be a feature here, this will be a row, this will be a row, so you get the idea. Everywhere that there's an island of green that you see, that'll become a new row in the attribute table. So let's go ahead and do that. It'll take a minute. So now we have, there's around 7,000 points. And now we have 4,200 rows. So that means there's around 3,000 points. Right? What's the difference here? 83, 89. So there's about a 50% overlap rate, which means there's a high density of sightings that occur within 3 miles of each point. So we're starting to work towards a hotspot. So the next thing we're going to do is make these look a bit better. Just because I'm trying to be like Bob Ross, like I said. So we're going to make these happy buffers. If you know anything about his happy trees, we're going to go ahead and make these nice orange color. And we're going to get rid of the outline. And then we're going to make these a bit transparent, just so we can see the map behind them. So we're going to go ahead and do that and let them draw. They're much better looking. So we're starting to get a decent looking map. Now, let's see. We need to know how many points are within each of these features. So we have 2 layers. We have the point layer And then we have our buffers. So there's a cool feature in ArcMap where you can do a spatial join, it's called. So basically anything that intersects with these features, you can bring an attribute or a count over into this table here, right? So we're going to go ahead and do a join. And I think we can choose spatial here from spatial location. And we're going to choose the point layer. We're going to join the points to the polygons, and each polygon is going to, which these buffers are considered polygons, they're going to get a summary of the attributes of the points that fall inside of it. So how do we want to summarize them? We want to know how many points fall within each of these polygons or buffers. We could also, if there was attributes we wanted to merge into each, we could do that as well. But just for this example, we're going to count how many points fall within the polygons, right? So we're going to be able to classify the density of sightings inside of each of these features, right? So then we need to export this. So we're just going to say point count. All right. What's the point count in the 3 mile buffer we just created? Oh, I have to stop editing to do that. See, even I forget things. Stop editing. Yes, I want to save those edits. Now we can go back and redo what we were doing. That's a good point. Don't forget to stop editing or save your edits once you do them. I tend to do that sometimes. So we're going to go back to the join. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to make sure we have the points selected to join to the polygons of the buffers. And we're going to count how many points are within the buffers. And we're going to rename that again. So if you missed it the first time, you can see it again. I'm just going to call it point count. So this is going to create a new shapefile that's going to have another column in the attribute table that's going to count all of the points. And I'll give you an example of it in a second of what it's really doing and what I'm describing when I say a spatial join that's going to count. So we got our new layer here, which means we really don't need this old one that we were working on before. We're going to go ahead and remove that. We've got our new layer, which I'm going to symbolize the same way as before. And don't worry about the map. It'll draw when I finish refreshing everything. Okay. And it's thinking. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to select one of these little islands. This one looks good, right? I've been looking at this one a lot. It looks like it's got a lot of sightings. So we are going to select that. And when we open this table here, we can see just the records we've selected. Like I said, each one of these little islands is a row. So now we're just going to look at just the selected records, which is the one I just clicked on. And the sum, or the count, is what we really care about, is 11. So there's 11 sightings inside of this polygon that we just selected. So in all truth, I don't really care about any of these other sums at the moment. So I'm going to go into my fields in this layer and turn them off since I'm not going to work with them. So we can go to Properties on the layer, go to your Fields tab, and we're going to turn off these sum. Anything we don't want to see we can turn off. So now we have a nice looking table. When we select the record, open the attribute table, there we go, there's our count. So we have a feature ID. The shape is a polygon. This is kind of a duplicate layer. That's fine. We can probably turn that off too. As a matter of fact, I will, because I like nice, clean looking data sets. So here we go. We have a feature ID. We don't really need the ID. I'll keep that just in case we want to work with it for some reason. And a count field. So now we know how many sightings occurred in every one of these. Like this one is 5. This one here is 7, right? It's a bit of an extension, but it barely makes 3 miles. So now we have a layer with a field that we can symbolize. And so go to your properties of your point count layer, Going to look at our symbology, and we're going to start to work on a graduated color symbol strategy. So we're going to symbolize based on the count, and we're going to create classes. So there is a polygon out there that has 293 sightings in it. I think that would qualify as a hotspot. We can decide how many classes we want, and I think I'm going to stick with 5. That seems like a fair number. So let's look at the span of what we've got. We've got 1 to 3 is extremely cold compared to 293. So 1 to 293 is our total range. So I'm going to start to classify these as, for anything less than 10, let's say anything less than 5 is going to be blue. And then we're going to work on 1 through 5. There we go. And we're going to say 6 to 11, that's fair. 12 to... let's see, 12 to... where do we want to go with this? Maybe 20 or 30. We can see what it looks like on the map. All right, we're going to stop at 30 there. We're going to go to... let's start at 12 to 30. We're going to go 31 to 75. Seems like a good number here. And anything above 75 is going to be bright red as a super hot spot. And again, we can play with this, but we're going to have to look at see what the map looks like. So we've got that done. We've got a 50% transparency. Now all these buffers are going to change color. Okay, so we're in a relative hot spot there, but if we zoom out to the US, or actually if we zoom, we just go find that, look at the table and sort the count descending, we can find the 3 hottest areas, and I don't know where they're going to be, but this is how we're going to find, this is how you find hotspots that you otherwise might not realize are hotspots. And I hope that when I click zoom out that these are surprising. I'm guessing that most of them are in the Pacific Northwest. I'm guessing, but we'll see. So now we're just going to zoom to the selected layers. Well, there's a surprising one. So this was a good guess. We have a couple that are very close to each other. So this range here might extend in the Pacific Northwest. Really, we've identified a pretty good corridor here. And would you look at that? It corresponds to national forest layers, right? So if I brought in my national forest shapefile, we could do a little more analysis. There's a good national forest corridor here in the Cascades that Bigfoot follows. Just on the edge, for some reason on the western side of the Cascades, it seems. Again, northern, we've got Snoqualmie National Forest, and I'm a northeasterner, so if I said that wrong, don't hold it against me. And over here we've got another one in Aberdeen. So you can see right away, and it only took us 15 minutes, 20 minutes to get to finding a real hotspot. And then we're going to make some slight edits to the shapes, make them look a little smoother. But that's how we get our hotspot. So let's go back and see where the other surprise hotspot was. This one caught me by surprise. Outside of Pittsburgh. No real national forest presence or national parks. Doesn't look like we're too heavily mountainous, It's very interesting. It's a surprise to see it there. Let's zoom out and maybe we can get a better idea of what's going on. The Allegheny Mountain Range runs that, which is just northwest of the Allegheny Mountain Range. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Let's see here. How many sightings does this layer have? 221 sightings that are all at some point overlapping within 3 miles of each other. And you can see, I mean, it's a reach for some of these. They're barely touching, but they're still within 3 miles of each other. So I like to do this more than a typical hotspot analysis because Bigfoot is a wild animal, and it's going to travel differently than how a normal hotspot analysis would treat data, in my opinion. So I'm just using some nature logic, and I think 3 miles is a reasonable distance for sightings to be overlapping, especially if the family is traveling or it's an individual rogue Bigfoot, or there's a lot of scenarios why a creature would travel in a given area. We don't know how big their range is, so I figured a good ballpark number is 3 miles for overlapping sightings, and to establish kind of a range, or a micro range, if you want to call it that. So let's see. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to edit this shape here to kind of give it a smoother appearance. So we're going to start editing again. We're going to edit the point count shape. I'm going to ignore that, and we're going to go to, let's see, where is that tool? All right, so we're going to use the smooth tool, and what you can read that does is smooths the straight edges and angular corners of a feature. So we're going to clear the selection so we can use this tool on all of the features. You do have to have at least one feature selected. I'm going to select all of my buffers. Yes, I want to continue. Hopefully my computer can keep up. And we're going to use the smooth tool, and this tool uses the map units. So if you don't know where to check your map units, you can go to your layers and hit properties, and you're going to look at your general, and your units are your map units. So my map is in meters, so we're going to look at the smooth tool again, and the general curve of these circles, I'm going to allow for a 500 meter offset. So it's going to change these buffers a little bit. It'll smooth them out, but it'll include a smoother area, so you won't have such a hard curve from these buffers. So you'll get a bit more logical or natural looking range. And again, this is a number that I think is fair, just based on considering that a Bigfoot or a creature is not going to bounce along these hard curves. It's a bit more natural, and we'll see what that looks like in 2 seconds here. It'll take a minute. There we go. So it smoothed out these hard edges, and we get a bit better looking shape of what this natural range might be. If you wanted to go further, we might want to fill in these areas. In my opinion, I'm going to leave this with these fingers outstretching, because there might be cities. You'll notice an intersection here, right? There might be populated areas that these Bigfoot skirt around. So I think it's more precise to leave these buffers as they appear on the map. That way you have a true hotspot corridor, if you will, if I can coin that phrase. So I'm going to go ahead and save my edits like I did before. And now we can go ahead. It's going to take a second. My computer, that's a lot of changes for my computer to save. It's taking a while. While that's saving, what I'm going to do is go ahead and get rid of all this clutter on my map, and I'm going to start to select only the sightings, you know, the orange and red bands here. Actually, you know what? I'll do yellow, orange, and red. I'll keep all the cool temperatures off the map. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my symbology. And I'm going to make this blue band here hollow. I'm not gonna symbolize that. And I'm also not gonna symbolize my cold 6 to 11 band. So anything that's got more than a dozen sightings that stack on each other within 3 miles, I'm going to consider starting to get warm, pretty warm, and red hot. So now the map's going to look a little different. I'm also going to do, this is just to show you some features of ArcMap. We can do a select by location, and we can select from our sightings any sightings that are within the 3 mile point count buffer. So now we're going to get a subset of all 8,389 sightings. Oh, that's right. We have to do one more step, because even though I turned off the symbology, we have to tell it where to look. So one more step, what we're going to do is, first thing, select by the classes we want. So anything that's 12 or more, count is greater than 12 is what we're going to tell it. So we're going to select any polygon that has a count greater than 12. Then we're going to go back to our select by location. And we're going to select from the Bigfoot sightings cumulative final point layer that is completely within the buffers that we've just selected. So anything above 12 is a buffer that we've selected, and we want to know all the points that are in buffers that have more than a 12 count. Now you'll see the selection is a bit different than before. Well, I wonder why it's not. One more thing. Count greater than 12. Man, I forget things sometimes. It's been a while since I had to do this. Select by location. You know what I forgot? I forgot to tell it to use the select features we selected. So let's go ahead and do that now. One more time. There we go. Third time's a charm. I swear I do this for a living. All right. So now we can go ahead and export this. And we're going to call this our hotspot points. So these are points that only fall within a range of 12 or more. And I know that's a long string to be naming a shapefile, but oh well. Here we go. We're going to add that to the layer. We're going to turn off our old one. And now we've got a neat looking map here where we've got our hotspot points. Voila. So now we've just distilled our information down to just hotspot and just points that are within that hotspot. So if we look at the points, we can start to identify attributes about those points. How many of them are just a sighting? How many of them are footprints? How many of them are audible? Now let's zoom out to the whole map now. And we'll see what the whole map looks like. So there we go. There's a set of US hotspots. I'm going to turn off these points because they're kind of overrunning the map with red because they're not dynamic symbols, so they don't change size as you change the scale of the map. That's a whole nother video. I'm going to turn off this transparency so we can see it from with better contrast. And there we go. We just created a hotspot layer in the US, and the red is any more than 76. 76 plus is the red band. The orange bands are areas that have between 31 and 75 sightings, and the yellow bands are any more than between 12 to 30. So you can see how we can go from data that looks like this. There's a lot to take away from this data set. And given some preferences or ideas about what we want to see, we can use our software to whittle it all the way down to data that looks like this here. And that gives us, instead of 8,300 individual areas to go look at, we now have let's see, we're going to open the attribute table, and we now have anything above 12 that gives us 43 sites to go look at. So you see my little number here after I did my selection. So we went from 8,300 individual sightings to doing a small bit of analysis and identifying areas that could produce, or are more likely to produce, sightings, data, tracks, that type of information. So what did it take us, really? 30 minutes. And that's just because I couldn't remember all the tools are that I hadn't used in a while. And I'm trying to move slowly so you guys can follow along. But there's some surprises in here. The Appalachian Mountains, the Allegheny Mountains. We've got a lot going on in New York. This looks like it's just outside the Adirondacks. So let's check that out. Since I'm from New York, I want to see what's going on over here. So we've got how many sightings? Let's just do the hotspot sightings. Quite a few, actually. What do we have? 15 sightings, and that's just outside of the Adirondack State Park, which is the biggest state park in the country, by the way, by Ticonderoga, just outside of Lake George, which is an awesome place to visit. Went there as a kid. Good memories. So let's just look at the area there. So Lake George, a lot on the shoreline there, Lake George. Whitehall. Very interesting, very interesting. So now we can start to look at these little micro areas, or micro corridors, if you want to call them that, and maybe base our studies there. I don't know why I just zoomed out that far. I'm going to zoom back in on the US and turn off our layer here. So again, there's some in Florida between 12 and 30. A ton of activity here in the Pacific Northwest. We can even smooth these out even further if you want. 3 mile point count. Let's go ahead and smooth it to 1,000. See what it looks like. Let's use 1,000 meters now. And this is really going to drastically change the shape, probably. It'll take a second. Not too bad. Let's zoom in and see what that did. I like that, actually. I think it makes the smooth edges, it's not following any topography or anything like that. We could make it do that. Maybe that'll be another video too, where we make it follow the topography, or start to clip these shapes based on national forest boundaries or other attributes that we deem important. This is just a quick, I say quick, it's been almost 40 minutes, but I haven't been on in a while, and I wanted to show you guys a little bit behind the scenes of what you can do with data. And this is just dipping our toe in the water. You can do so much more with ArcGIS and GIS in general to identify trends and unexpected hotspots or interesting information. And if you guys like, let me know. I have the shapefile, so I can always share it with everyone. Let me know what you think about the video. We've got a new Instagram at Bigfoot Mapping Project, so give us a like and share. And thanks everyone for sitting through the whole video. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think this is it's a great new way to look at Bigfoot sightings and discover new information. So if you have any suggestions or requests, please let me know. And again, thank you very much for supporting the Bigfoot Mapping Project and taking an interest in our YouTube videos. Our website is bigfootmap.com, and you can join the community there. There's a forum on the website. Lots to do, lots coming up in the future. So again, thank you and good luck in your search.